Welcome to my engraving studio. I'm Karri Gregor, the Artist Engraver.
Ma'am?
I'm so glad you could join me today. In this video, I am continuing the hand engraving of a Colt 3rd generation single action army pistol. Part 4 is the barrel. Let's get into it. First step is to get the barrel into the vise. Now in the past I have just used clamps and clamped it with a rubber stopper so I don't harm the barrel, but trying to get the angle and everything, I'm trying this time the glue gun. I'm using a hot glue gun and a smaller piece of wood, and I am experimenting here to glue the gun into place. This way I have the option to get closer into the angles on the sides of the barrel and where I need to be. If I had glued it to my flat jig, it would be too close to the surface and I wouldn't be able to manipulate the graver into the right angle. I just use a regular craft store hot glue gun and a scrap piece of wood that I got from my husband's shop.
Draw.
Okay, we're dealing with the barrel, and I didn't show any of the sketching because I sketched it so many times. I had stuff going all the way down here, like 7 scrolls, and it was, I've got to worry about some printing on the other side here, and that restricts the width for the duration of it. I might be overlapping the printing when I go back over on this side a little bit in the beginning, but not for this part. So, okay, this is the situation here. We've got, here's the top of the gun. You can see this is the sight, and it goes down to the sight down here, which is pointed directly at you. So it just, the sight go down there, goes right here. So what's the issue is this printing actually is centered. Never have I seen this. It's just like so ultimately rare. So what I decided to do was to have it come, as you can see the drawing swoops in and is centered, so we got this kind of a V thing going on. And then on the side, this bit here starts wide and then it tapers up towards the sight. So we've got this kind of a, this here, one of my cardinal rules here, I did it differently than I have done before. You're not supposed to have anything as much as possible going this way down the barrel. You want all the movement to flow this way. This is the only bit that's different because I wanted to emphasize this V thing that I've got coming up like that. And this actually emphasizes it by going down like that. So we've got this kind of a, get my fingers straight. Let's try something else. Yeah, we've got this and this, you see, that angle, which forces the eye still to go down the barrel. And that's the point. Even the negative space here is coming up this way, like that. So I think I'm pretty excited about this design. I think it's going to look really nice, and it emphasizes the nice centered printing, and we've got a lot of forward movement because of it.
I like your style, dude.
I'm just gonna show you a little bit of the sketch here. There we go. The sketch that I worked on to produce this drawing. And it's important, that's got all my measurements on it, so I can refer to that when I do the other side. I snapped a couple pictures of this sketch on the piece and sent that off to the owner and got his approval to start cutting. So here we go. First cuts on the barrel. If you're interested in getting some custom engraving done, start the process by sending me an email. The address is in the description box below the video. It's hard to get a good angle sometimes, but you can see I needed that extra space. I couldn't have done this if I glued this into the flat jig, because I've got to come in from different angles, and dealing with a rounded surface, I have to be able to come up from underneath. Once again, if you've watched my other videos before, this is quite a dance to be able to do an engraving like this. I am controlling the angle of the bevel with my right hand on the tool. I have my right foot as operating the pedal to control the air from the air compressor to the tool, so it determines the speed of the hammer inside of the engraver. And with my left hand, I am rotating the vise so that I move the vise into the engraver. The right hand's mostly controlling the angle of the instrument, and the left hand moves the vise into the engraver. So while I'm moving, I will cut, but you see I'll stop and then move my hand. It's going to be coming up here quick. There, stop, move the hand, and that's, I don't move the engraver. I stop moving the engraver and I ease up on the pedal every time I rotate the vise. So, like I said, it's quite a dance. It's a little hard to keep the camera in focus here, but I guess we might get a good angle on this shot because it's not going to be rotating too much. It's more of a straight around the curve. Oh, there it goes out of focus, just as I said that. But that is one line that kind of goes around the curve of the scroll and then out to the flourish or the flare at the end. Everything moving down the barrel of the gun. That's the way we want the action going. Every time you go around a circle, you have to move that whole vise around. Every time I go around one of those, I have to move, the whole vise has to go around in a complete circle. So, you know, when you're dealing with a long barrel like in a rifle, then that's a pain to try and navigate and hold it steady while this wide thing is coming around and going to hit you in the stomach. You know, you have to make the adjustments. This one is another one where I'm going to show you how it comes around the scroll. See, every time I stop and then I move my hand while the vise is moving, I'm engraving, but I stop every time I move my hand on the vise below. And we like to see that the bevel is going the right way. Want to have the overlay going out from the engraving instead of into it. Yeah, move those little filings. You see, I have to adjust. I wrap that cord around my arm so that it holds it away so it doesn't get tangled on parts of the gun. It keeps just one more thing to keep out of the way. You end up having a lot of cords going around here, and if I've got my headphones on, I'm listening to some music or some podcast, then that's another cord that I have to get going over my shoulder. Well, let's see what we've got now that that's all cut. A drop of water and some polish here, polishing it back off. There we go. That looks nice. There's a nice angle upwards down the barrel, and that looks really nice. Now we're going to go in there and do the dotted work. Every one of those dots is a hit on the hammer. If you listen, it sounds like it's 2 taps. What I'm doing is I'm tapping the surface of the hammer to make sure that it's level. And then I do the hit. So it sounds like 2 taps, but it's only 1 hit. And isn't this nicely glued to that wood block? Oh, this is looking very nice. Coming right along. While I have the barrel glued into this position, I have to do the loading pin housing on the top. I have so many paper sketches and notes for this piece. When I'm trying to work out an idea, I grab whatever scrap paper is handy and figure out my attack. I'm trying to get better at keeping track of this and keeping it organized. So I bought this little notebook, but you can see I forgot to use it. I would just grab whatever scrap paper was handy. What do you do to record ideas? What works for you? Suggestions and comments are welcome below. Here's the sketch on the loading pin housing. It's a modified version of what I put on the top of the frame and around the base of the cylinder. I had to make it smaller so it doesn't have a full leaf on each of the curves. There just wasn't room for a leaf. I mean, what I'm working with is probably about 1/4 of an inch wide, I think, something like that. 1/4 of an inch, maybe 1/3 of an inch. But there's not room there to do a full leaf, so I did these buds and copied as much as possible the trim that I used on the bottom of the cylinder and the top of the frame. I've split up the engraving of this piece into shorter videos by part. I should mention that you don't have to get a whole piece engraved at one time. You can start with the cylinder and then the back strap and go on to the rest. It's a way of spreading the cost out. Something to consider. In addition to not being very wide, this part of the barrel is not rounded, but rounded concave. So when I come around the edge, I have to be clear of the barrel or the rest of the loading pin housing. It's kind of like engraving into a hole. So, you know, you're very limited really on the angle that you can attack, that you can come at. So by the time I got into this, I found I could only go one way, and then I had to come the other way and meet, which is not recommended when you're engraving something that you're going to try and align to opposing directions and trying to get the line to meet up. But well, I've got pretty good skills as far as being able to do that sort of thing. It's, you know, a steady hand, an artistic eye, but it's not something I would recommend anybody else trying to do. But there it is, a couple of drops of water, and it is done and looks very sharp. We have to pop it in the freezer so that the glue contracts. When it freezes, it contracts. I usually leave it in overnight to make sure it's really frozen solid. But there we go, coming out of the freezer. You can see all the frost on here. This is new to me, this. I'm trying to figure out how do I get this, pop this out of the glue. It should be able to move. And so I tried several angles, and then I realized I had to get it down in the vise, and then it was really easy. So I didn't have the camera rolling when I actually popped it, but you can see how it just came right out. So now I'm putting glue. This was a perfect way to doing this. I'm going to be using this a lot more on the barrels of guns because it just worked brilliantly, and it was so easy to pop out of the glue. And it held securely. I could do whatever I wanted, and it was not moving in the vise, or the vise wasn't in the way. Everything was great. So now we have to copy the design on the other side. And since I'm not going to be doing several drawings. I decided to film a little bit of this. So I'm matching what was on the other side. I'm taking a look at my note paper, and I can see the top on the other side. When I finish the drawing, I'll show you what I'm looking at from my side. But let's get those swirls in there. There's a little bit of printing. It says Colt Single Action Army there, 45, and I won't. The part of that scroll is going to go into the print, but so I won't engrave through the print, but I will, leave space for the letters there.
Quick draw.
And let's just speed this up so you can see how the drawing goes. See, you're going to see a little bit of drawing this time. I'm not totally leaving all the drawing out. But I keep on checking on the other side because I can see the top of the engraving on the other side that's glued down. And I'm just making sure that everything lines up as I draw. I also made sure that I took a picture of the other side because we want to get this to match, and I have to remember how many buds that I put into the scroll and all of that kind of thing. If I didn't do it, well, I did it in the notes, but I also took a picture to make sure that, I get everything lined up. And since we're doing a mirror image, I want to look at the other side of the printing on the top there and make sure that everything is matching. The top of each scroll matches the length of each leaf so that we have no discrepancies. I've got more pictures of pieces that I've done on my website, TheArtistEngraver.com, on Instagram and Facebook. Check the description below for links. Now you can see what I was looking at because I had it turned towards me. You can see how everything is matching up. I've got the flares, the scroll, the leaves, everything has to be mirrored. And we are going to cut this thing. Are you enjoying this video? Please share it. You would really be helping me out. Sharing, liking, subscribing, and commenting all help with the YouTube algorithm, and it would be nice to get a little income from making these videos. Please do your part to support the show. Since it's a mirror, I don't have to send a picture for approval because the owner understood that this is going to be a mirror image on the other side. Of course, I'll send him something when it's done, but I don't have to wait for approval before I start cutting. Now, right in here, I am not going to be cutting through that lettering that I told you was at the bottom there. It doesn't look right if I do that, so I just cut between the letters, between the words. And then I'm done with that bit for the rest of the gun. The rest of it is above that print line, which is why I designed it with the swoop the way, or the angle the way I did. This angle up from the base of the barrel, and then the little scroll with the flourish going back from the tip of the barrel really balances out each side, and it is so nice to see it from the top that it's so well mirrored. I really like this design. Do you have any questions? Please drop them in the comments below. Here you can see a wider shot of me engraving. I have to get the hammer started in the graver by, hitting it in the air like that. I'm listening to some kind of podcast here, I guess. There you go. You see how I move my hand stop and then move the vise, and I do not grave while the vise is still. So I have to stop every time I move my hand. Look at how that has to come all the way around. You can see why it's hard to get a good camera shot because of the actual graving, because I have to get the camera right in there, and I'm always afraid that the pistol is going to come around and hit the camera, and I have to make sure everything has cut clearance. Every bud, every scroll needs to have the vise go around. And here we are taking off the white paint. I might have to take a little brush. I can see that there's a lot of paint still stuck in the printing there. You see how the Army and .45 kind of went into the scroll, but you can see the printing and you can see the scroll. I didn't grave over top of it. Now I'm doing the dot work. It gives it a nice relief without cutting out metal, and it's a much quicker way of doing it, and so you get that nice effect of the scroll really popping when you have all of that dot work behind it. There, you can actually see the tip of the dot. That was a good camera angle. I have to remember what I did there, because you can actually see the end of the Engraver. That's my dot punch, Engraver. Next video will wrap up the engraving of the underside and any other bits left on this Colt. I also will be showing a little bit more of my equipment, the engraving equipment that I use. So click the subscribe button and hit the bell so you'll be notified when that video is posted. There, you can see it looks like I give it 2 hits, but really the first one is not with any pressure. It's just to make sure that my hammer is at right angles to the punch. If it's off anyway, it's going to make that punch skid and scratch the surface, or it jumps. These punches tend to jump when you hit them, and then you can nix another part that you didn't intend to put any dot on. So there's a lot to even the dot punch work. You have to know your equipment, and you have to have control. And the other thing is doing it on a rounded surface too. You have to make sure that the punch is level to the surface, and that changes because it's rounded. Lots of things to think about when I'm doing this. At this point, a lot of it is instinct. And into the freezer. And out of the freezer, right by that whole wheat bread that I made. Okay, look at the frost on this. Now watch this. This will come out a lot easier because I know what I'm doing this time. I've got it in the vise very well, tight. There we go. Look at that. Crack, and it's out.
Isn't that barrel sharp? It doesn't take much engraving to boost the elegance of this piece. Send me an email if you are interested in getting some gun engraving for yourself. I can give you a free estimate. It makes a great gift to get or to give. Click this link to get some ideas from other pistols, and this link to see the 7 steps to getting your gun engraved. See you next time.